We're back here on the Locked On Coyotes podcast. We got a lot to get to as training camp officially opens. We got to look into a little bit of where are they now as we take a look at two former Arizona Coyotes players in Keith Yandle and Alex Galchenyuk. Plus, Barrett Hayton has finally signed his contract with the Arizona Coyotes. So we're going to get to all of those things on today's episode of Locked On Coyotes.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Robyn Leonio. That's Carl Pavlik. On today's episode of Locked On Coyotes, we got a great show for you guys on today's episode, but I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, including on YouTube, and of course, the 12 News app. Like I said, we got a great show. We're talking, where are they now? We're going to look at a couple former Coyotes players, and then in a little bit, we're also going to talk about Barrett Hayton and, his contract details as well. But first, let's do a little bit of where are they now, Carl. First of all, let's go to, I guess, the very short bit because we want to get it out, get this information out of the way. Former Coyotes forward Alex Galchenyuk has signed a PTO with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yep. PTO for Galchenyuk. I think that's the second year in a row that he has had a PTO. I think that, Colorado is a good pick for him. It's, a team that could definitely use a skilled player like him to add some depth. He's going to get a little bit more support than he had with the Coyotes. I do like to say that, in a rebuild situation, it gives players a chance to show what they can do. But Galchenyuk, I think, needs a support system that he's going to get in Colorado, hopefully, more so than he could in Arizona.
Absolutely. And, I feel bad for him in some ways, the fact that, there's, he's officially been memed on how many times he gets passed around the league.
Yeah. He has played for, let's see, I have it, 6 organizations so far, which isn't even that many compared to some of the other ones. Montreal, Arizona, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, and Toronto. Shortest tenure was 8 games with the Ottawa Senators. Longest 418 games with the Montreal Canadiens over 6 seasons. With the Coyotes for 2 seasons, played 132 games. He definitely didn't look great last year with the Coyotes, but I think he still has something to offer.
I mean, I think we kind of expected that again. He signed on the PTO. We didn't expect him to make any moves, any crazy moves. We thought he was just going to be the guy that kind of helped fill in, make a leadership role, kind of teach the kids how it's done for a little bit and be like, all right, see ya, I'm gone.
Yeah. And like I said, hopefully he fits in well with the Colorado Avalanche during, preseason and training. I'd love to see him stay in the league.
Absolutely. It'll be cool to see him stay in the league, especially because the kind of guy that, the kind of guy he is and the kind of player he is. But, of course, Galchenyuk isn't the only player that we're talking on where are they now, because Keith Yandle, Carl, was part of a day in which, 3 NHL players have announced their retirement from the league. So Keith Yandle was one, obviously PK Subban was another, and Zdeno Chara was another. But Keith Yandle, the former Coyote, and the current record holder for the longest consecutive games played, has retired.
Yep. I was actually traveling. I was on vacation, and I knew that something was going to happen. And the day that I traveled back to Phoenix, I'm in Sky Harbor. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, PK Subban retired. Keith Yandle retired. Oh, it's just Teo Chara retired too. I was always a fan of Keith Yandle. Even, when people were giving him crap, it was a, sign of being an Arizona Coyotes fan in the early 2010s that you were frustrated by Keith Yandle. The damn it Yandle saying was a meme amongst Coyotes fans at the time. He played 558 of his 1,109 games with the Arizona and Phoenix Coyotes. Actually just had like half a season with the Arizona Coyotes, spent most of his time as a member of the Phoenix Coyotes, which just kind of shows like, when his tenure was, because that name change, like, it was 2014, but it feels like a while now. It's been, 8 years?
Yeah, it's funny because like I've kind of always associated Keith Yandle with the Coyotes, and then like somehow like even as the years went by, right?
Yeah.
Just because like obviously those early 2010s were some of the years in which I was very impressionable on hockey. So like I kind of like associated certain players with where they were, and Keith Yandle was one of the guys that I associated with the Phoenix/Arizona Coyotes, and obvious and it's yeah, and that it kind of makes sense the fact that that's how my brain associates. Even in the years past, right? As you go to 2016 and 2015, 2016 and beyond, and it's just like, oh, that's right. It's been a long time since he was a Coyote.
Yeah. One of the kind of staples of that rebuild was Keith Yandle being traded to the New York Rangers. It got the team, picks. I forget who those picks were spent on. It got Anthony Duclair, who at the time was supposed to be a significant piece with the Coyotes. That ended up not happening, but Duclair's kind of moving forward with his career. I think one of the more memorable moments last season was the Philadelphia Flyers Yandle and that Iron Man streak coming to an end. And honestly, once that happened, like that's kind of when I knew it was probably over for Yandle. He finished up with a goal and 18 assists in 77 games with the Flyers. He was a minus 47. Like, he ended his career with an Iron Man streak ending, but you could tell that his play wasn't really up to snuff anymore, which is disappointing.
Absolutely. I'm trying to look at the trade history on that one to see what went down on that one. And there was, because it said the Coyotes had a 2015 second round pick. I'm not sure if that was ended up being retraded away, because the 2015 second round pick that the Coyotes ended up having was 32nd overall, and that was to draft Christian Fischer.
So in that trade, I'm seeing Anthony Duclair, John Moore, 2016 first round pick, number 20, conditional, which must have been part of a trade because it looks like it was used on Dennis Chwalski. Did they trade both of those picks? It looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting seeing those. The
trade trees.
What's that?
The trade trees.
The trade trees. You do gotta love them. The same can be said about the Coyotes pick, their first round pick in 2016, because the trade that. Because they had two picks in 2016, but one says from Detroit.
Gotcha. Okay. So they packaged the Rangers pick That was part of the deal to get 16th overall. So that's what they drafted up to get Chychrun. They also sent Joe Vitale for the Pavel Datsyuk contract. So that's what that first round pick was happened with that, which, good trade. I take that every day. They also had a second round pick. I'm trying to figure out which one was that.
I think that one might have a little more look into it, but
that was the 2015 second.
Yeah, we gotta love trade trees. They make things interesting because you gotta take a look at it's like, oh, how did that trade end up affecting the Coyotes today?
Yeah, because the Coyotes acquiring Jacob Chychrun, that is a significant thing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Trying to see if I can get that second rounder though.
We'll get that later. We do. We are a little bit short on time, so we do got more to get to on this episode though, because we are going to talk about Barrett Hayton, because Barrett Hayton has a contract. We're going to get to that in just a moment, but first I'm going to turn to Carl for a quick word.
So I have a message from our friends at BetOnline, because betonline.net is your number one source for football betting information this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. And hockey, because that's coming up. You can head over to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, so now let's continue this episode of Locked On Coyotes as we finally say we can take a little bit of a sigh of relief, Carl, because the final piece of holdouts that we're waiting for the Coyotes. Obviously, they still need a goaltender, but that's a whole other thing. But the final holdout is finally signed. Barrett Hayton has his contract. He was signed to. He agreed to a 2-year deal with the Arizona Coyotes.
Yep. 2 years, $3,550,000, which pretty good deal for Hayton. He gets a little bit of an upgrade, bridge deal. So definitely still has something to prove, but he's making a little bit more money, which is always good when you're a young guy like Hayton.
This is 100% a prove it deal for Barrett Hayton.
Yep.
And I think a lot of us, like a lot of you guys, would probably be remiss if you didn't think he'd get a prove it deal otherwise, because he played okay last year. I mean, take a step up, but the thing is, I think Bill Armstrong still has a massive question mark surrounding him. It's like, what kind of role is he going to play in during this rebuild?
Yeah, definitely. And he hasn't really done much to show that he earned anything more than a prove it deal. Because I could definitely see, if he had a stellar rookie season, if he was in the Calder conversation, anything like that, you could be like, okay, that necessitates a major pay grade term. I think Hayton's going to be a good player, but I don't know how good. So I'm fine with a shorter deal. Now, you do find there is a bit of a risk with a prove it deal. We talked about PK Subban earlier. He famously won the Norris Trophy on a bridge deal and got paid afterwards. So that could potentially happen. Although I don't see Hayton winning any major trophy.
No. Especially because in the next 2 years, I don't see him anything outside of just being a 2C.
Yeah. I mean, I think the award that Hayton always had like the biggest potential of winning was maybe a Selkie, but he's years away from that.
Yeah, he is years away from a Selkie, so
Yeah. But like just his style of play, like he's not winning a Rocket Richard anytime soon. I don't think he's going to be like any kind of MVP.
yeah.
But
So no Rocket Richard, no Art Ross, no Hart, no Ted Lindsay. He's not gonna get any of those. Like,
yeah, maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he gets what's the one? The Lady Bing.
oh, Lady Bing, maybe.
Yeah. But I mean,
Bill Masterson.
sure. I mean, I hope not. That would require something pretty significantly bad to happen to him. But
True.
yeah, that's the one trophy I would not wish on any kind of player.
You got a fair point. You have a very fair point.
But I mean, I think this is great. It'll be interesting to see like kind of where he slots in, but I'm glad he's not missing any time at training camp. That's always very important. Like
Training camp,
if he
like officially on ice, just starts today. By the way,
did we kind of give that as the deadline for when to be concerned about Hayton training camp?
No, I don't think so. I think we said like not necessarily concerned, but kind of like raise a little bit more alert, kind of like pay closer attention.
I may have said at one point then to someone because that was kind of where I was at. Like, if something doesn't happen by training camp, what's going on here?
Yeah, but we're glad he got it done. He got it done right before training camp was set to open. So like, good on it. Good on that. You know, really good. The fact that you got a deal done.
Yeah, like Bill Armstrong has not had the easiest offseason. Like, sure, Lawson Krause like took a bit of time. Kind of, it really came down to the wire. Literally, like I think reports are it was like in the arbitration room itself, and now Hayton just before training camp, kind of setting the tone as Bill Armstrong is someone who's not afraid to like take it to the last minute. Although I am kind of curious if like players are going to begin to kind of perceive him as a someone who blinks at the last minute, or what that's going to be like, because he is
good at a game of chicken.
Yeah. Because ultimately, I think Krause gets what he wants, and I would say the team got what they want with this one. But I don't know what Hayton was looking for. I don't know what Krause was looking for. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see Armstrong's like negotiation style seem to develop.
It really is different than what a lot of us are used to, right? Yeah. That's for sure.
I mean, because like honestly, like looking at this moving forward, I know I'm going to be like a little bit less concerned with things getting down to the wire when it comes to the moves that Bill Armstrong makes. That being said, the second he gets burned in one of those situations, that's going to be significant. But for right now, he seems to be like the type of negotiator who's going to be like, all right, we'll let this play out. We'll let it keep going. Like, I don't need to accept a deal right now. We're on my time.
Yeah, they definitely on his own schedule. We're going to talk a little bit more about Barrett Hayton in a little bit, but I do want to let you guys know that on tomorrow's episode, speaking of, kind of negotiation tactics, tomorrow's episode, we are going to talk about excuse me. We're going to be talking about Jacob Chychrun. My brain is tired. We're going to be talking about Jacob Chychrun because he said some things on Wednesday that you guys are going to want to hear, or maybe you don't want to hear it, but you unfortunately have to. But we're going to talk about that and break it down on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Coyotes. So be sure to stay locked in. But let's get back to a little bit more on Barrett Hayton, because obviously he's on a prove-it deal. And he's not one of Bill Armstrong's picks, really. Like, he wasn't really, so he's just kind of sitting there, right? You don't like, how does he fit into this rebuild? I mean, that's the kind of the question, right? And how does, they look down the road? Because someone asked me this, a while back, and I tried to fit Barrett Hayton into the top 6 in a few years down the road, given the fact that, in a few years, you're going to eventually want, Logan Cooley, Dylan Kempthor, Connor Geekie, and those guys, in the roster.
Yeah. I think, if Hayton continues to develop as a center, I think he is second C. I think he has that over Geekie at this point in, just in terms of where I see the team going. That's kind of, though, based a lot on, where Hayton seemed to be projected to go and where like he is projected to be, because it does seem to be like, the team went for size during the last draft, and Geekie is part of that. So does the team substitute like maybe a size player over a player like Barrett Hayton who has the skill? I'm not really sure, but I think he should be a second center behind Cooley in a few years.
That makes sense. The idea that I kind of put in forth, and I was kind of like when trying to fit Hayton in this, into this, I actually put him as a second C. And I'm like, but you know what also would look cool, because you still do want Connor Geekie as a top 6 forward. He seems like the guy that can easily slide on over to the wing. So, yeah, like, especially because you can imagine, Geekie alongside Hayton. I think something like that can work out. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, potentially. I could see Geekie kind of moving to the wing. I could, potentially see Hayton moving to the wing if that's what the team needs, because let's say the Coyotes, knock on wood, not trying to curse anything. Let's say they get a future number 1 C at this year's draft. And there's like 3 players I could be talking about, I guess. So
yeah,
like at that point where you have like, player X top, stick Logan Cooley as 2. Do you put both Geekie and Hayton on the wings, or do you and just decide like, hey, you can never have enough centers, or do you be like, all right, we're gonna ship out Hayton for like a package, maybe like shore up the defense?
Honestly, if the Coyotes are manage to get a franchise C in the next draft, then that does seriously beg the question on what you're gonna do with that, because with Barrett Hayton, because think about those who can play center, because Nick Schmaltz can technically still play center. Logan Cooley can play is gonna be a center.
Yep.
Barrett Hayton can be center. Connor Geekie can be center. And hypothetical
best player in the world, Travis Boyd, can be center.
And also hypothetical draftee in the next year's draft is gonna be franchise level. Like, there's not a lot of space. Like, you can't just say, yeah, you know what, we're just gonna put Hayton at 3rd C, and because at what point does that accomplish anything?
I mean, if the Coyotes did become a team with like 3 hard-hitting centers, like that's how you win championships. Like I would say if Connor Geekie is your 3rd line center, which potentially, could be that in a couple of years, that's a really strong lineup. And, I don't really think that if the Coyotes are in a position like that, they need to go the route of having a traditional 3rd line. Just have 3 lines of like players who are going to beat the crap out of you, or score all the goals on you. Like that's all you need.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I think it might also be in the case where Barrett Hayton doesn't want that. He wants
Yeah.
to be in a place where he can make an impact.
Yeah. Although, would you rather be on the top line of the New Jersey Devils or the fourth line of the Tampa Bay Lightning?
You got a good point there. Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah. I think Hayton's case, obviously, he still would. I think he seems like the kind of player that would want to make, a name for himself. I mean, he was a first round pick, so
yeah, top 5. I will say this about Hayton, like the big difference between him and a player like Geekie, a player like the hypothetical player the Coyotes could draft next year, is he is in the league now. Like Cooley is probably going to be, he's going to be at least a year in the NCAA, potentially 2. It wouldn't, shock me if Logan Cooley decided they wanted to do a second year. Plan for Connor Geekie to be in juniors. Like, I don't see him making the jump right away. It just doesn't work with the Coyotes timeline. Probably doesn't work with his timeline developing. Like, Hayton is the player who's going to be there now. So when a player like Cooley makes it to the NHL in, let's say, 3 seasons from now, Cooley's making his NHL debut. You can put like him in like a sweet spot and like have him get the easy minutes. Well, you got Barrett Hayton, who's like at that point just a veteran on this team, getting those top line minutes, playing the hardest ones. Like that works in Barrett Hayton's favor in developing at least.
You just don't want to make sure that you put Logan Cooley in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Because old iterations of the Coyotes will put, a center that they draft in the first round on the fourth line and not give them any minutes at all.
Yeah. Like, you don't want that. You're not going to throw him to the Wolves his first season, but you're going to put him in a chance to succeed. Like, I think that's one of the things that they did really well with Clayton Keller's first year. Like, they kind of like made it so he could succeed. The problem was like you didn't have anything that second year, like, because at that point, he's expected to be doing everything. Like, Barrett Hayton is going to be that kind of rock through the transition for players like Cooley, players like Geekie, like. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the Coyotes have a center to serve as, at worst a stopgap, but at best a big piece of this franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you make some good points on that, and it will be interesting to see how it works out because the Coyotes in a few years, I think in general, are going to look really good because and obviously, I can throw another hypothetical out there that will completely throw this through an even more bigger loop is, having a hypothetical kid come home.
Yeah. That would definitely be another thing. It does. It really does. And, at that point you build around it. And like I said, like a player could get traded to shore up another area. Like, I think the Coyotes are going to need some work in their blue line in the next couple of years. Maybe you get, I was going to say maybe you trade for a goaltender, but I am not trading a player for a star goaltender. That seems like a recipe for failure in today's NHL.
Yeah, no, I don't think, You're 100% right on that. 100% right on that. Any final thoughts you want to share before we close things off on this episode?
I'm just glad I got done before training camp.
Absolutely. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's episode of Locked On Coyotes. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review. To like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We are available everywhere you get your podcasts. including on YouTube. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, on Instagram at LockedOnCoyotes, and on Twitter, LO_Coyotes. I am personally at Robyn_Leonio. Carl Pavlock is at Carl Pavlock FFH. Interact with us, ask a question you might have, we might answer right back, or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today's episode. I hope you guys are staying safe out there. I hope you guys are staying healthy, and don't forget to howl on.